If you're thinking about studying in Australia, you're probably feeling lots of emotions right now. Studying in another country can feel like a very overwhelming experience and a massive challenge. I was an international student myself. I did both my bachelor degree and my master's here, and I know firsthand what it feels like to move to another country, leave your family and friends behind, and having to adapt to a whole new culture, country, and in some instances, at least in my case, a new language. It's a massive turning point in your life, and it can definitely feel a bit overwhelming. So these are the things I wish I had known as an international student here in Australia. If you're interested, keep watching. Okay, let's start off with the admin stuff. First, if you want to study here in Australia, you're going to need a student visa. So one of the main things that you can do for yourself and to make the whole process much easier is to contact an education consultant. As I've said in many videos, education consultants or education agents are people who help you get enrolled in an Australian university, and they process your student visa, even your health insurance. Because if you are not aware, you do need to get health insurance, which is a condition of your student visa. So the best thing you can do is to contact an education consultant. Usually they are free because they get a commission from the university that they are going to be enrolling you in. So basically you don't have to pay for that service, which is a win-win. Something that I want to say though, and this is very, very important, so please pay attention, is that education agents have to be authorized by the university you're interested in applying to. So how do you find a qualified education agent? Go to your university website and you'll see that they have a list of authorized education consultants. Click on that list and filter by your country. So check these resources and make sure that they are authorized and qualified. And I'm saying this because there have been reports of scammers, people around the world, pretending to be education agents and stealing money from families under the promise that they are education agents who are going to help you get into an Australian university. So please do your own due diligence and make sure that they are qualified agents. And the same applies for migration agents. Make sure that they are MARA registered. Okay, so that's my first recommendation. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed when you're researching what university to go to, entry requirements, or how to enroll in that university, perhaps do a bit of research and try to find an education consultant in your country so they can do all the paperwork and process your student visa for yourself. Now, my second recommendation, and something that I wish I had known before, is that you can contact the university directly as well. So if you have any questions regarding your study program, tuition fees, or what are the career pathways after you complete that program, what scholarships are available for people like you from your own country, etc., the best thing that you can do is to go to the university website directly. All universities have a scholarship section, for example, if you are interested in that, or in terms of career outcomes, etc. The best thing that you can do is to send them an email or contact them via their website, and they're going to get in touch with you, because at the end of the day, it's in their best interest to have you as a student, right? So that's my main advice. If you have any questions about that, contact the university directly. And in relation to this, I have a full video on how I got a scholarship here in Australia, so I can recommend watching that if you want to know a bit more. Okay, another point that I like to emphasize relates to English, learning the language and practicing the language. This is going to be paramount. It's going to be super important at the time of submitting your assignments or even getting good grades and passing your exams at uni. So something that served me really, really well is that 1 year before coming to Australia, I spent months and months just studying English, focusing on that, on writing specifically. Writing is super important when you're having to perform at an academic level. Try to focus on that. And another point that I want to emphasize in relation to this is that I highly recommend taking advantage of your English exam. For example, I had to take the IELTS academic test, which not only helped me enroll in my university course and get a student visa, but it also prepared me for my university studies and for life in Australia. And to be honest, if I hadn't prepared for the IELTS, I'm not sure I would have been able to pass my university subjects, because having a good English level when you're studying here in Australia is essential to be able to write assignments, to participate in class, or to even communicate with your classmates. Now, if you're not feeling super confident with your English communication skills and you want to better prepare for your English proficiency test, the IELTS Prepare by ITP Podcast, the sponsors of today's video, are an amazing and trusted resource for your IELTS preparation. You can listen to their podcast with audio and video options on the IELTS by ITP app, or even YouTube or Spotify or any other podcast platforms. The best thing about this is that you'll basically be learning from industry professionals and and IELTS experts on how to effectively prepare for the test and maximize your IELTS scores. So for example, if you need to work on your speaking or writing skills, they have dedicated episodes to each of these topics, and they give you tips and strategies on how to better prepare for each of the components in the IELTS test. It's definitely worth checking them out, and it could be a game changer for your IELTS preparation. And it's something that I would have loved to have access to when I was preparing for the IELTS test. Also, IELTS from IDP offers a range of free personalized preparation material in different formats to help you achieve your goals. Just check out their website if you want to find more resources, and I'll leave you a link down below to the IELTS by IDP app. So take advantage of that English test, learn as much vocabulary as possible, learn how to write essays. That's something that served me really, really well. Another thing is accommodation. So many people usually ask me, where do I stay when I'm a student in Australia? What type of accommodation is available? You have a few options. You can stay in university accommodation. For example, the University of Melbourne has accommodation in their campus and you can go and stay there. Or you can stay in a studio apartment in the city, or you can go to a share house, which is one of the most common options, or you can rent an apartment for yourself. So you have a few options. I have lots of videos on how to rent a house in Australia. I'll leave you a link down below. And my best advice, if you're planning to look for accommodation, like to rent an apartment for yourself or a share house, is to rent an Airbnb for a period of 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And during that time, you can look for share accommodation or look for a house that will give you enough time for you to settle nicely, get familiar with your surroundings, with your environment. So that's a really, really good option. Now let's talk about university life in general, and something that I wish I had known. My best tip is to make the most out of your orientation week. If you're not aware, orientation week is basically a period during your first week of university. And if you're an international student, my understanding is that this is compulsory, at least it was for me. And during that orientation week, you're going to go to your university, your institution, you can walk around, you're going to meet people, other international students who are on the same boat as you. They're new to the country, they're new to Australia. So this is an amazing time to make good friends and to just get familiar with where your classes will be as well. During that week as well, you're going to have to register for your student card. They're going to take a photo of you. It's a good period as well to get familiar with public transportation, how to get to your university. So make the most out of that. So your first day of university, you're going to feel super confident. I remember myself, I was very, very intimidated by the whole process. But yeah, then you just adapt as you go. Now, in relation to this as well, you'll find that most universities here in Australia, if not all, they have student services and lots of resources for students and international students particularly. So make use of all those resources. If you have any questions, if you have any issues at university, you just go to the Student Services Hub, go in person. I highly recommend doing that. Ask them any questions. If you have any inquiries, that's your best resource. Another tip, and this is a very, very big one for me and one of the most important ones. Make friends. Try to make friends. Be proactive. Don't close yourself in your cocoon. Many people are intimidated. I'm a very introvert person as well. It takes a while perhaps to adapt, and perhaps one becomes a bit shy at the time of making friends. But this is something that I wish I had known. You need to make an effort when it comes to making friends, especially when you've moved to the other side of the world. You are by yourself, or perhaps with your partner, but still, it's just you or the two of you and no one else. So you have to create a social network. The best thing that you can do is to get involved in university activities, university clubs. For example, I do rock climbing. So if you do bouldering or rock climbing, perhaps you might be interested in joining a university rock climbing club. And you go on weekends with your peers, you go rock climbing in the mountains, you can go on hikes, or if you're into the arts, for example, you can go and play an instrument, get involved and make friends. That's one of the most important pieces of advice that I wish I had known, because it's definitely not easy, especially as an adult. It becomes a bit more challenging. And in some instances, for example, classes, you have different schedules as well. It's not that you share the same classes with the same people. I guess it depends on the discipline that you're studying. But in my case, I chose a different range of electives, and this is something else. You can choose different electives throughout your program, but you're going to be with different people in different classes. So it's not that you're you're going to get to spend a lot of time with them to develop those strong friendships, right? So by getting involved in university clubs and meeting like-minded people as well, that increases the likelihood of you actually establishing very, very good friendships. Another thing, if it's not university clubs, you can also join meetup groups. We talked about them in other videos, especially on how to make friends in Australia, but meetup groups are also an amazing free resource for you to meet new people. Or even, for example, if you want to practice your English, you can go to meetup groups, for example, at a bar in the city, and you meet other people, you can play games. It's an amazing way of learning about the culture, having a good time, meeting new people, and practicing the new language. So I highly recommend doing that as well. Okay, now in relation to this, in relation to making friends and looking after your mental health, something that many students experience, and I've experienced it myself, is culture shock. Culture shock is basically when you move to a new country and it's so different to your home country that you really have to adapt, and at the beginning you're a bit paralyzed by it, right? Like, how do you interact with these people? So culture shock can take many forms. Perhaps you have a bad experience in terms of interactions with other people, or perhaps you have a culture shock in terms of how the new university works, right? For example, I had studied back in Argentina and then I got the transfer. So the Australian university system was very, very different to what I was used to. And that was a bit of a shock, and I had to adapt to that. So take your time, and if you're experiencing any distress, culture shocks, know that it's normal to feel perhaps a bit overwhelmed by the new country and this new way of doing things. Look after your mental health. The good thing is that Australian universities and different Australian institutions, even in the workplace, they have free counseling support as well. I've used it in the past because, life, it's life, right? So if you need any help, if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling down, or even you're feeling very overwhelmed by the whole migration journey, go and seek help. And again, universities have free counseling support for students, so take advantage of that. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, and it can be very good to have the opportunity to talk to a professional and have that safe space. Another point and another thing that I wish I had known earlier, it's to network with your teachers, with your professors at university. They can be amazing resources when it comes to looking for a job. So this is something I wish I had known earlier. Then of course, at the end of my bachelor degree, I did it, and it was amazing because, for example, I was interested in change management and I fell in love with that subject, and I contacted my teacher and she said, come along to a conference and I'll introduce you to some people. She was amazing. So I found that university teachers here in Australia are very, very helpful. They don't have any issues in giving you some guidance in terms of career advice. So highly recommend networking with your teachers, trying to take advantage of that as well, because university, at the end of the day, you're going for studying, but also you're going there for networking. Now, another thing, perhaps an admin kind of related point, is that each university has its own learning management system, and basically this is kind of like a database where you're going to have access to all your assignments, your grades, assessments, and different resources available. That's where you'll have to submit your assignments. That's where all communication with teachers as well happens. Perhaps you're going to have access to different forums as well to interact with different students. So getting used to a learning management system, at least dedicate one day or a few hours to get used to that. And that's something that I wish I had known, just getting used to a learning management system of your university and knowing how to submit assignments, etc., and all those different rules. Now, time management is another massive thing that you need to consider when you're studying. Managing your time effectively, creating schedules for your assignments, as I said earlier, and getting familiar with the learning management system when your assignments are due, because there are penalties if you submit your assignment beyond the due date. And if you have any issues in terms of, for example, if you need extensions, etc., you can talk to your teachers. Perhaps they give you some kind of exemption or extensions considering different special circumstances. Another thing to know is that the cost of living in Australia is pretty high in comparison to other countries, although this is compensated by high salaries. But if you're an international student, perhaps the first few months in Australia, you're not going to be working. That's something that you do need to keep in mind, that cost of living is high because tuition fees are extremely high, which it's fair enough. But you can expect to pay minimum 20k per year, and that's minimum for your degree. And then grocery shopping and accommodation, especially rent, can be high as well if you don't have a job. So I highly recommend budgeting for that and making sure that your finances are in the green. I have a full video on how to live cheap in Australia, so perhaps that could help you. And in relation to that, take advantage of student discounts or student concessions. So basically, if you're a student, you have different concessions and discounts, for example, for public transport or for museums or for the movies, etc. So make use of that. Usually you just need to present your student card, but talk to your university if you have any questions about that. But yeah, make use of your student concessions. In terms of work and volunteering, as you may be aware, in Australia you can work part-time, generally, depending on your discipline, but in general you can work part-time during your study period and then full-time during your holidays, during the break. So that's good news. So it will give you the chance to get a bit of money when you're studying. And something that you can do is at university. So for example, the first years you can perhaps do some casual jobs if you want, but then your last year of university, I highly recommend trying to get an internship, a placement, or do volunteering work in professional environments if getting a job is what you're after, right? After you graduate. Volunteering is super important. This is something that I've done while I was studying, and it was an amazing stepping stone for me to get a professional job after I graduated, because it got me not only local experience, but also references, which are very, very important. If you want to know more about working in Australia, I have lots of videos. I'll leave you the links down below. And another tip is explore Australia, get out there, make friends, travel around. You move from the other side of the world, very likely, to this country to explore and get to know people from different countries and different cultures, people who perhaps you wouldn't have met if you had stayed in your country. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it is helpful. I wish you all the best in your university studies here in Australia if you decide to come here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.